Hello, it's Alexia here from Head Trash. So I want to talk today about healing and how can you tell if you've healed something. Now, I think this is a really important question because if you don't know whether you've healed something, how do you know whether to stick with it, whether to carry on trying to heal it, or whether you can move on? So that's what I want to talk about today is helping you to understand how you can tell whether you've healed something. And I've got 3 ways that I can share with you so that you can tell this for yourself. So, but first of all, I want to sort of dive into why. Like, why is it important to know this? And I think that the first thing is really like, if you are working on healing something and you're putting all that effort into healing something, you want to know whether it's healed or not. Because if it has healed, you can move on and start healing something else or go on and live your life. Or if it hasn't, then you know to dig a bit deeper and to carry on and to pursue that healing task a little bit further. But without knowing, how do you know what to do? And when you don't know whether something is healed, it can feel like there's all this stuff piling up around you that all needs healing. And it all gets very overwhelming very quickly. And then we kind of get a little bit frozen with it all and not wanting to kind of, it's like, oh my God, it's just too much. I can't even deal with this. I don't know why I'm bothering. It's not getting me anywhere. I'm still the same, blah, blah, blah. And all of that churns round in your head. And then you stop and then you don't move forward on the healing journey. So knowing whether, the effort that you've put in, whether something is healed is really, really important for that. And I think when you have a lot of healing work that you want to get done, or you might feel like you've got a long to-do list on your healing, then it can really give focus to your effort, because it means that you can stick with one thing and know that you're getting somewhere with it. And then when it's done, you can be like, yes, there's that kind of satisfaction, that reward, that feel good, that sense of achievement that comes from having completed something. But also now you're healed from that thing. So now it's not sapping your power, it's not sapping your energy, it's not derailing you, it's not getting in the way of you living the life that you want, of being the person that you want. This thing is now done and you can now move on, right? You can now move on to the next thing that you want to do with your life, whether that's healing something else or just being utterly fabulous. So this is why I think having this kind of a sense of knowing where you are on this journey and what has been done and what is still yet to do is really, really important. And knowing, when you know whether something has worked, because it can really help you. And the way that it can help is if you know that your healing effort is working and it's getting you results, then you can double down on that. Okay, when I do X, Y, Z, that is working for me. That is actually working. And so if I just carry on doing that, then I'm going to get there. Whereas, a lot of healing work, a lot of inner work, there's a lot of time involved. There's a lot of things that you might be trying. You might be spending time on retreats, on courses with therapists. I mean, you could be spending a ton of cash on doing this inner work, on trying to become a better version of yourself, of becoming more confident, losing the anxiety, losing the depression, whatever it is that you want to be achieving in terms of, more emotional well-being, or reducing the sabotage, or that's part of mental fitness, or whether it's about sort of healing the triggers and the traumas to enable your spiritual growth. Whatever the reason is that you're pursuing the healing journey, knowing that what you're doing is working is really helpful, because then you can just carry on. Or ditch it, right? If this thing that you just spent a ton of cash on, or whatever you just wasted a load of time on, hasn't even moved the needle, then you know that maybe you might stop doing that one and try something else. So because we haven't all got loads of time, right? A lot of us want to get this stuff done. Well, I do anyway. I just want to get this stuff done so I can kind of be happy sooner and not wait for that. Why should we wait for happiness and inner peace? Why can't we have it, as soon as possible? Because life in that state is so much better, right? So knowing where your effort is paying off, knowing where maybe the investment, the money that you're spending is actually giving you the results, the return that you want, means that you can therefore focus your effort, focus your resources, your time on things that work. Okay, so all of that for me is pretty compelling reasoning in terms of wanting to know whether something you've been trying to heal has actually healed. Okay, so let me now go into those three things, the three ways that you can tell whether or not something has healed. Okay, so the first one is you don't remember the thing. So this is mainly around, let's say, an event that could be quite traumatic, for example, or a difficult event that was quite emotionally challenging and upsetting and all of that. And once you've done the healing around that, it becomes much harder to remember the detail around that event, because you've kind of lost a lot of the information that was being stored in your system is now gone. And so there's less, and I'm doing this because what I tend to find with the healing work that I do, the clearance work, is I always imagine the guy from Up, the one with all the balloons, right? And if you imagine that your head trash, all your micro traumas, all your traumas are just this massive bunch of balloons that you're dragging around with you everywhere. This is why life is so hard, right? Because you're kind of trying to get through a doorway and you've got all these massive balloons just causing chaos. Clearing stuff or healing stuff is basically you just snipping one of the strings and then it just floats off. So now this balloon is floating off, right? It's up there and you can still see it. You're like, oh yeah, I can see that, but you can't feel it. You can't even reach it. You can't kind of, and then over time, it just kind of, you forget about it because it's just drifted off. You're like, oh, I know, I had a purple balloon once, but it's gone now. Like it's gone. So this is what that not being able to remember thing is. But sometimes you might still remember. So maybe there's been this really big, horrible event in your life and you're never going to forget that. So, but you can still remember it, but it just doesn't have the same emotional pull on you. So you can kind of think about it in the way that you might think about that pair of socks in your drawer. It's like, yeah, I've got one of those. Yeah, I have one of those experiences in my background, in my history, my life. But yeah, it's in with all the other ones, right? It doesn't kind of stand out as being this, and it's kind of creating all this chaos and emotional stuff, this heaviness, this triggering capacity for you. So this not being able to remember stuff is really quite it is quite shocking is the wrong word, but it can be quite surprising at how much you stop remembering about something. And that's why with a lot of these powerful healing tools and techniques that they say, don't kind of, if you're going to court for something, for an event, don't do the healing before you go to court, because you might struggle to remember some of the important details that you might be asked for on the stand. And that I've seen that a lot, where people just don't have they just lose the memory, the content of that event. That's what it is. It's the content, because a lot of that content is actually emotional. And once we strip out the emotional content, a lot of the other stuff just kind of goes with it. And so you end up just remembering the vagaries or the outline of the thing without seeing the detail. Okay. But another way of kind of expressing that idea is this idea of not being connected to it. So like the guy with the balloons, now you're not connected to that balloon. And if there was a lot of wind going up ahead and the balloons are going, and when it's windy, you'd be like, oh my God, I'm going over here and I'm going over here. That's what would happen. But the minute you snip that off, you're not getting that tug anymore. People are kind of like triggering you, or they're saying the things that would have triggered you before and caused the pull. But now you're just all 12 steps back. You're like, what? Are you talking to me? No, I'm not bothered. You're just not bothered about the thing that you used to be. And that kind of leads me on to point number 2, or the second way that you can tell, is that you just reach a place where you just don't care about the thing anymore. So let's say there are things you've healed, a conflict within you where you're really annoyed by people being rude or swearing, or I don't know, ignoring you or judging you, or whatever it is, the thing that that you've decided to heal and would kind of bring a reaction in you that made you feel uncomfortable or upset or triggered or angry or whatever that reaction was. And now when they say that thing or do that thing, you're just like, oh, you know, I'm not, just don't care. Like, okay, so you've just judged me and you've just said this about me. That's more about you than me. That's not my stuff. That's your stuff. That's what's going on in your head. You might not say that out loud. But that's where you get to. You're just not bothered. And this not caring is not this kind of, well, I don't care. It's not that kind of teenage, well, who, you know, none of that stroppiness. It's this, you just simply don't care what they think. You don't care what they've said. It just doesn't touch you, and therefore it doesn't trigger you. It doesn't have an effect on you. It doesn't take away your power in the way that it used to. You're much more contained with your power. You are much more empowered, and in a power, you know, you remain in your powerful position, and it doesn't knock you off your perch, because you don't care what they've just said. You can take it on board and you can go, oh, that's interesting, I might want to take that on, that's good feedback, thank you. But it doesn't come with all this emotional stuff, which can really kind of mess with us quite a lot, really. And so let's say you have kind of decided to heal, let's say you're really worried about what people think about you, and so you say, okay, they've really got to sort this out, because this is really kind of, you know, bothering me a lot. And then, so when you've healed that, you'll know that, because you'll realize that it doesn't matter what other people think about you. It doesn't matter. You don't care. You just don't care what other people think about you. Because who cares what people think about you? And you're like, it's not your business what they think about you. That's their business. Like, who knows what's going on, what chaos is going on in their head, and therefore that has resulted in them thinking those things. Like, you are not in control of what's going on in their head. I mean, you've got enough trouble keeping tabs on your own head without worrying what's going on in their head and what that is creating for them in terms of how they see the world. You realize that when you've healed that, you go, well, like, doesn't matter. This doesn't say anything about me. And so you're not actually bothered what people think. Now, of course, there's going to be random strangers, and then there's going to be what your other half, or your mum, or your dad, or your sister, whatever, you know, your close friends. And so that will carry weight, because you know, there's context there and meaning. What I'm referring to here is what random strangers think about you, or people online, or that kind of thing. But even so, you know, if you've got a super judgy friend, now when they're being super judgy, you'd be like, no, I'm not bothered. Doesn't matter. She's just super judgy. And you just kind of move on, rather than letting it eat you up, right? So yeah, so it's really, it's reaching that place of just being at peace, because you're not bothered, because you're not being sucked into these dramas, sucked into this judgment, whatever it is that's going on. You're able to, this contained power that you have is just enabling you to stay in a much more grounded place, a much more peaceful place, and therefore you don't get stressed or anxious in this way, the same way. It's a lot more, yeah, just good. So how does all this come together? What's the third way? Well, the third way is that you smile more, because when you've healed something, you've let go of so much emotional energy and heaviness. You know, a lot of what is contained within this stuff that's creating these triggers and these wounds and these conflicts in you is very heavy emotional energy. And so once you've healed that, you feel lighter. Like, I get all the time in my sessions with clients, and I don't always work directly with people, I work online with them, so they're doing a lot of their own work at their end. And they, you know, come in messaging me, go, oh my God, I just felt so lighter. Just feel so lighter today. I just feel like a huge weight is off my shoulders. Just, you know, even though that after a clearance they feel tired and drained, because it can be quite exhausting to do a really powerful clearance. This is using head trash clearance, the method that I've developed, which is in my book, Clear Your Head Trash. It's also in Fearless Birthing, if you have pregnancy, birthy things that you want to be clearing. But yeah, it's all in my book, Clear Your Head Trash. And, you know, once you've done a clearance, which you can do yourself because it's all in the book, you can experience that lightness for yourself, where what it's like to feel like you have let go of this emotional load. And yeah, when you're doing the clearance, it might get tearful, it might get, you know, it might get intense, but that's short-lived. That's going to last 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then you feel this, is it just like, oh my God, I feel so much better for that. Like, you know, like I'm going to say something, like just had number two at the toilet, like, yeah, then I feel so good for that, so much lighter. And you have literally just got rid of all of that emotional stuff from your system. And that's why it feels so good, feels so light. And this lightness comes across as levity, as cheerfulness, and you're more able to smile. Now, the really one crucial aspect of this is if you can laugh at the thing that you've just healed, then that is a massive sign that you've healed it. Because when, you know, at the beginning of a healing, especially when you're doing head trash clearance, at the beginning, I encourage my, you know, anybody that uses head trash clearance at the beginning, really tune into it. Notice how it's affecting you in your body and your mind, and what's going on in your head. How does it affect you? Does it want to cry? Do you feel your throat wants to cry? You like that? Like, what's going on? Does it feel, you know, your shoulders all like tense and all of that? What's going on for you? How is this thing affecting you right now in your life? And then, you know, I encourage people to write that down at the beginning of their clearance, because once they've finished the clearance, they go back and they like tune into the thing. They try and, you know, reach the balloon again. Like, this is the thing I've just been working on. Where is it? And I can see them when I'm working with them. I can say, well, now remember that experience and tell me how that makes you feel now. And I can just see their eyes going, looking up, scanning, looking up, scanning. It's like they're looking for the balloon and they can't find it. And they're looking everywhere in the sky and they can't find the balloon because we've cut the string and it's floated off. And they literally can't find that again. And it's only because they've written down at the beginning, or I've written it down if it's in a session, how this has shown up for them, that they realize, oh my God, this is like 10 minutes ago, I was thinking this and feeling this. And now I can't even connect to it. I can't even access it. I can't even remember how it felt. Like, I can't get there anymore. That's you know, that's the impact of knowing that it's healed. And then I joke about it. I go, well, yeah, no, and I rib them, or, you know, like tease them about it. And then they just fall about laughing. 20 minutes ago, if I'd done that, they were like, probably slapped me across the face because it was a real raw thing for them, right? But now they can laugh about it. So this smile, this ability to smile and laugh about yourself or the situation, or just find lightness in life, is what comes when you've done that healing work. And that's a really useful way to tell whether you've healed. Now, if you imagine just multiplying that in terms of not just on the thing that you've worked on, but on other things on your healing journey, then this, you know, the accumulation of that really starts to show where you're much more able to sort of show compassion for others and understanding. So you realize that maybe they're not in a good place and that's why they're reacting like that. And it's not to do with you, it's to do with them. And you can show understanding and maybe support them through something. Whereas before you might have felt like they were lashing out at you and you would have been defensive and reactive and emotional back and created a bit of a conflict. And this is why this can be so important to, one, know that you've healed something, but also it's really important to do the healing work because it does affect your relationship so much. When you think about the workplace and how many times at work you might have conflict, or even in your relationships with your friends and family, and how much that conflict comes about because everybody's taking everything that's being said so personally, because they're all taking it as an attack on themselves, because there's no compassion, there's a lack of compassion. They don't understand that maybe that person's saying that because of the pain that they're experiencing, because of the healing that they haven't done yet, and that you're just on the receiving end. It wasn't about you, it's just about them. And when you've kind of done the healing yourself, you're no longer triggered by their pain, by their unhealed aspects, and you're much more able to kind of hold a space for them to kind of work through their stuff, or at least not exacerbate a situation. And the other thing that I think is really important is when you do have this levity and you don't have that reactive nature, what you say has much more impact. People hear what you're saying more. You know, like if somebody was to kind of lash out at you because of their unhealed aspects, and they say stuff at you, and then you want to say something back. Now, if you respond emotionally to that, and you're like, ah, then all they hear is the words that you're saying are just, they kind of don't really hear what you're saying. They just get emotional reaction. You just think about when you're watching, let's say, a news program where there's people debating, and you get some people that really lose it, don't they? They're like, well, and they kind of, and their voice goes up and their arms get involved, and it all gets a bit tense, right? And at that point, whoever's getting a little bit like losing it like that, you stop really listening. What they're saying isn't really getting through because all you're seeing is this emotional reaction. Whereas when you're able to stay calm because you're not getting triggered, because you're just you haven't lost your power in that situation. You've taken on board, maybe you don't agree with what they're saying, maybe they're saying things that you really deeply disagree with that go against everything that you stand for. But you're much more able to just go, okay, and then present your point of view or respond. And you're doing that calmly. And they're kind of not calm and they're all emotional. And so your calmness in that situation can really lower the energy of that moment, and that could be very helpful for you. But more importantly than that, what you're saying will have impact. They will hear it, because somebody who's angry and not emotional has got a lot more impact than somebody who's angry and they're like going crazy, like, you know, because you can be angry, you can communicate anger, but you can do it in a very kind of calm way, and that's way more scary than somebody that's kind of flapping about with their anger. And it doesn't have to just be anger, right? It just means that you can respond to something that maybe you don't agree with in a calm way, and that message will get through. Which, when you think about that in the workplace, when you think about that in relationships, that's huge, right? That really enables much more smooth relationships, easygoing relationships, and that can really sort of make day-to-day living much more pleasant. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna stop there. So I hope that was useful for you, and that those 3 ways to tell whether you've healed are going to come in useful for you, so that you can check whether the healing work that you're doing is getting you the results that you want. And if you find that it's not getting you the results that you want, then you might just want to try using head trash clearance. And it's all in my book, Clear Your Head Trash. Okay, until next time, bye for now.